And here we go. And
we got the countdown.
okay,
the countdown.
We're brand new. It's going live.
Fresh.
Live. Hey, that joint was, man. It just brought us in with the way we needed to be in, right?
That is the hell of an intro, man. I'm like, damn.
I'm saying, man. Like, so Donnie B got the beats. I got my brother, Nicholas Baker. Yes, got my other brother from the other mother, Law Watford. On the So we finna take this pretty light, man. We you know, we are really trying to move in a good direction. We got you know, everything going 1,000% with Two Blue West, but definitely wanted to kind of just take the time, slow things down, and talk to the bros, considering all of the stuff that's going on with politics and life and so forth and so on. But definitely wanted to get my bro Law on along with Nicholas Baker. Nick, how you doing, bro?
Hey man, all is good. You know, exciting, stressful week, but looks like we got some results. You know, it's crazy that we're in a time where we got results and we still feel like, but is something going to happen? Is something strange going to happen? You know what I mean? But like, for the most part, kind of feeling good, feeling optimistic in ways, but definitely looking forward to this conversation today about some of the things that have transpired.
That bro, Law, how you doing today?
Good. Well, my dog is sick. Never knew that was about to come out.
That just laughed. It was just like, wow, that's it. I appreciate it, and I'm sorry. It was funny. Wait. Sorry.
Yeah, outside of that, I'm good.
Hey man, rest in peace, Alex Trebek.
Rest in peace, Alex Trebek.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Hey, 2020 is undefeated.
2020, man.
Yeah.
It was like he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna let y'all get this win on Biden, but watch tomorrow. Yeah. I got something. You know what I mean? Watch tomorrow."
Alex held on. He held on to see it though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
He powered through. He was definitely doing the Chadwick Boseman because he was like still shooting like through it.
Right.
For a good amount of time. So it's kind of
and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you could kind of see it a bit with Alex, like you know, and again, you know, you don't want to come across as a, you know, like how I guess I'm sounding right now, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like Chadwick is like, you know, Black Panther is like, oh, timeless, like boom, 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 and it was just like wow, and you know, but Alex Trebek, even still, it's just like wow, grew up watching them, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. It's like you could see it, you knew it was coming, but you know, it's not necessarily a super shock, but just when you think of the impact, like that show is synonymous with his name. You know what I mean? It's not like I was talking to my wife and I was like, they better not try to give this to like Steve Harvey or nothing. Like you can't move that direction. Like you like got to take some time and think about who's gonna make sense, like to run the show. Like in my head, I'm like, are they still gonna run the show? Because it's that synonymous with his name. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm Alex Trebek, and this is Jeopardy. Like that's it. Like I can't hear this Cedric the Entertainer, and this is Jeopardy.
But you know, he had somebody that he wanted to replace him that he said would be good. It's a sister, who is a pundit on CNN, I believe. And she's an attorney, so she's often brought on for legal matters.
Okay.
But he actually shouted her out like a year and a half ago, like, yeah, like that she would be somebody who's good to replace him, or she would like that. So I thought that was kind of cool.
It's 2020, so they probably put Ryan Seacrest up there or something and be like, you know, unfortunately.
Return the curse of daily, right?
Yeah,
right.
So, but anyway.
Yeah. So New York, so Law, what's the temperature on New York with everything that's popping with all of the political climate and everything?
I mean, New York, man, was like crazy lit. Like I was saying earlier, like we happened to be in Fort Greene Park in Brooklyn. That's Clinton Hill, Fort Greene, Brooklyn, for a birthday party, and it was like, I don't know, it was like a whole huge celebration there. I mean, open bottles of wine and box wine galore. You know where we at. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, you could build a daggone like brownstone with all the boxes of box wine. Obviously in Clinton Hill, you know what I mean, Fort Greene. But yeah, man, the energy was crazy. It was beautiful. I mean, in the day, the weather. Again, 2020 was like, yo, I'm gonna hook y'all up. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, the energy was like real peace. Yeah. And it's like, okay, we deserve that day. You know what I mean? But then the real work has to begin. You know what I mean? And it ain't even like a, you know, I started watching the reports afterwards and hearing, you know, people like Chuck Todd and, you know, MSNBC and CNN talk about, yeah, well, this is kind of a repudiation of the left and the progressives. You know, Joe Biden demonstrates that, you know, most of America wants, values his centrist and moderate policy. And I'm like, oh, shoot, here we go. Right? Now it's time. It means they're now waiting to kind of start shaping and molding us back into where we were in 2008, 2012, maybe, which means we're going to have to turn up the heat quicker. We can't, you know what I'm saying? Oh, if you guys are moving that fast. Jim Clyburn saying things like, oh, you know, progressivism and Medicare for all and socialism were albatrosses around the Democratic Party's neck. Nah, Jim. You know, I respect everything you've been and done, but right now, that thinking is part of the problem because Joe Biden didn't win the election. Donald Trump lost the election. You know what I mean? It wasn't like people were like, man, I love his policies. They were like, yo, this dude is fucking crazy. We can't deal with that anymore. And we're so happy to have Crazy out that we're going to celebrate. So yesterday was a celebration that Crazy was gone and Kamala Harris broke, you know, glass ceilings. That's what it was about. And we're happy that Joe's a nice guy. That's what it was. So,
you know, I think about it in the sense that, like, it's interesting you said, I think it's a couple of things. I mean, I definitely agree Trump lost, but I also think like Bernie helped win this election. I think Stacey Abrams helped win this election. You know what I mean? Like I can't say that their efforts and things that they didn't like affect the outcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so absolutely, yeah.
It was the perfect storm of things that came together that said, okay, here we are. And as I think of Joe in office, I think he's the right person for the time, right? In the sense that a lot of times he just comes off as this regular guy. You know what I mean? And like a lot of people want to post memes or like videos saying, oh, Joe is racist and like, you know, all of these different things. And like, I've honestly had an opinion that in the time he grew up, he absolutely probably has some thoughts, rhetorics, unconscious biases that probably lean towards like a racist thought or racist, like, you know what I mean, mindset. I think you can't grow up in that time and be a white male and not have that in some sense, right? I think it then comes to the point of saying, is he able to listen? Is he able to change? Is he able to be influenced? And I think that's why he becomes the right guy for it right now, is because I do think the one thing he's shown is that he can change, that he can have, that people can have influence, that he can hear, that he does want to compromise, that he does want to learn. And like I think he knows black people, like hey, you can sugarcoat it all you want, but he said it last night. He was like, African Americans came through for me and you always have. But in this one, it's like none other. Like, I mean, you take the Barack Obama stamp from the beginning. Like he got that, to me, he got the nomination off of that. Like, you know what I mean? I can't say his policies were standing, or like what he was saying was standing super strong. I feel like he was Barack Obama's guy, or his vice president, or that tag, like kind of through. Yeah. And then towards the end, you already see what won him, those counties that kind of pushed him through to be the president. So I think there's an undeniable sense from him that like there's some things I need to do. But it's important that the people who had all the energy before this election and who had all these ideas and policies and thoughts and wants don't back down either right now. Like it's about accountability. And that's what tends to happen. We get that joy factor and then it's like, all right, cool, he can take care of it. Like Georgia right now got a big next step to take when it comes to this Senate race, right? All that energy that was brought up in Georgia, they got to come right back. Yeah. And do it again and not forget. And like everybody need to be in Georgia and be like, look, let's get it. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of work still to be done. Yeah.
No, I definitely agree. I definitely agree.
No, I agree. I agree too. I think it's funny though. Interestingly enough, I agree with Law 1,000%. Like that was the temperature that I got, was that it was more like Trump lost it. And it's not because I wanted him to win at all. It was just like at the end of the day, you know, I guess it kind of pulled through how it needed to, and that was the temperature of everybody. But just the fact that it was even that close, was you know, the thing that was alarming, you know. But you know, it's neither here nor there, you know. But wow, yeah,
that's good. I mean, this is the thing that I'm waiting for, and I'm guarded. And you mentioned something like in the speech, I'm happy that Joe shouted at black folk, right? That's great, but that's kind of bullshit too at this point, right? It's not bullshit, and I believe his intention was good. I think if we take that and run, and just, you know, because there is an energy, you know, from what I've seen, where there's a lot of, oh, look what we did, you know what I'm saying? Look what black people did. Hold on, your play niece is coming in, and I need you to leave. Thank you, bye-bye. Thank you, bye. Close the door. I'm coming in.
The parental poise was like,
play niece.
Yeah, but you know, it's that collective energy where I feel like this whole ideal that, you know, it's great to be called, you know, the base of the Democratic Party, the backbone, and what have you. But now is the time where that's all well and good. I don't need that anymore, though. Like the fact that you shouted me out means that I'm going to expect that much more from you that much faster. Because I acknowledge, and you acknowledge publicly, that without this, you don't happen. You know what I mean? Clearly, if you look at the exit polls, you've demonstrated that you can pull it off with less Latino support. You can pull it off with less white woman support. You can pull it off with less gay support. You can pull it off with, you know, and to a degree, you can barely pull it off with less black support, but not generally, right? Because we still are like almost as effective in our voting for the Democratic Party as we were in 2016. Like it's still like 87% of us, right, are voting Democrat. You know what I mean? So I'm waiting to see how quickly we hear once these ideals, we start pushing these ideals, like next week when people are like, okay, this is what you said, how quickly we're going to say or hear, well, he's not even in office yet. He hasn't even been sworn in yet. As if you wait to the day you're sworn in to enact these plans, right? As if you wait to the day you're sworn in to pick people who you believe these ideals and have the ability and the relationships and the savvy to start moving the ball forward, right? Like you don't have to wait until January or February to start touching base with Joe Manchin from West Virginia, who I can't stand generally, but you know he's the weakest Democrat you have, you know what I mean? And you're going to need him to sign on to something. So if you're talking about student loan forgiveness for HBCUs, which I feel like that should be front and center, not the whole general public one. No, the one that you said you were directing to HBCUs when you came out with the first plan. The only plan you had first was this real plan, right? The only real plan. So I'm waiting for people to be like, oh, well, it's too soon. We got to give him a chance. Well, he still has Mitch McConnell. Oh, he still has Lindsey Graham. It's not gonna fly. That's not gonna fly. You know what I mean? They need to have a strategy, period. Whether Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell and the Republicans have a Senate, what are you gonna do? Right? Because right now they're talking about, for example, the Republicans, or McConnell already mentioned, stalling all his cabinet positions. So what are you gonna do? Okay, you stall these positions. These are the executive orders that I put in on day one to affect your donors. And I'm going to tie you up in court the same way this dude Trump has us tied up in court all the time, whether it's banning Muslims or moving money from here to there. What are you willing to do so that you don't have to come to me and say, well, if only Mitch McConnell, because I'm tired of that boogeyman. You know what I mean? I'm tired of that. And that's not going to fly. You're not going to ride that out for a year and a half. You got a year tops. And that's, to go back to Ice Cube, this ideal of the first 100 days, Cube got like a lot of flack. But one thing he said in these interviews, which nobody seemed to think was important, or as important as the fact that Katrina Pearson, who no Black people know, tweeted something. He said, what is the Biden campaign's plan for Black people in the first 100 days? Mm-hmm. And people were like, oh, how dare you? But guess what? Last week, it was last Thursday or the Thursday before, guess what he said? I'm going to pass LGBTQ legislation in my first 100 days, which he should, right? But wait, why doesn't it work like that for us? Why are Black people always generally the make do? Hold on, we got you. Make do people. And that's, you can tell I was holding that in for a little bit.
No, let it go. That's what it's for. Yeah, that's what it's for. But I think, the one important piece of that is that it's very twofold this time. Like, I think, like bringing up Ice Cube, and I said, I really hope he doesn't disappear now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, the accountability piece has to be there. It has to be. It can't be, okay, we'll give him a few, he's only been there 100 days. Oh, he's only been there a year. Like, it has to be the same fire that has been there as, this campaign is going on. It has to be like, Cube is a big name just because he said, I'll work with anybody to get this done. Right. If he disappears, his credibility goes with it. Like, you can't disappear. Like, you have to push the narrative and push the plan, because the plan wasn't like, oh, I have a plan for the campaign to pitch, right, and the plan goes away, right? And the plan is there. Now, how can the plan be developed? How can the plan be executed? Some things from it. Like, I'm not saying he 100% had the best plan in the world, but he definitely had pieces that could be implemented or executed. So it's like, okay, how does that happen? How are you still putting that same pressure on, and it not just fall back to kind of the norms of people trying to push through the normal kind of process that happens, right? How much energy is going to be put around it? It's like, that's the biggest part is, and like what I was saying to people before was like, I felt like this ticket, we had a big chance to hold accountable for some things, like probably more than I can think of in a long time, right? So now it's like we got to do our part too, right? And that's a big kind of part of it that we can't just sit back and be like, oh, see, he got in, he ain't do nothing, and then just sit back, right? Like, nah, it can't be. It has to be the pressure. It has to be the accountability. Yeah, so I'm hoping that part of it continues, and like this feeling of bliss, or feeling like, oh, the Wicked Witch is dead type of thing doesn't take over and become like, oh, the work is done. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a very interesting. I mean, I think his first year will be very telling and very like interesting to see.
Well, I think it would be interesting to see if he didn't have the interruptions, and I think there's these interruptions that, you know, the smoke that Trump is you know, going to create, or flapping his arms over this. That's going to distract a lot from the progress that could be made from you know, this time. I think that America has spoken for the first time in a long time, and I think that this is an opportunity. I look at it as, you know, Trump was the king of social media, so, you know, in his presidency, that's what he showed. So, you know, when him getting fired, you know, he's gonna know how to spend that too, to distract. And I think that's the thing that I would be watching, as how much he can impede Joe and Joe's progress going forward. And that's the thing that concerns me in the first.
You're speaking about Trump?
You said what?
As you're talking about what Donald Trump could do?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think he has a lot of potential to create calamity for Joe in the first 100 days, just with like the dueling of here's a lawsuit over here, here's a lawsuit over here, to create a whole bunch of stuff that Joe can't really focus, whereas other presidents at this time were given that space.
It's funny. I hope that doesn't become a thing. Like, that stuff is going to be there, like, regardless. It's gonna be there. The, you know, whatever is kind of gonna be, but I think a part of what has to happen is he can't focus on that. He can't focus so much on trying to like mend fences and heal things that it becomes that now the things you said you were gonna do get pushed to the side. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you have to know that yes, there will be this like barking chihuahua on the side who's gonna keep going at it for a little bit. Like, I don't know how long that will last, right? But what if it lasts 2 years? Is it going to be where I had the barking chihuahua at me for 2 years and I couldn't get anything done? Like, yeah, there has to be, kind of like what Law was saying, there has to be a plan that if they don't get the majority of the Senate, what are you going to do? You know, the Supreme Court is already stacked in a certain way that he has to have a plan of what are you going to do? Like, it can't be, oh, I couldn't do anything because of these things now. Because Donald Trump was very like, he went after what he wanted to do, very bold and like, no matter what. He was like a bulldozer. Not saying he even got all of it done, but he made it known, I'm going after it. Right. And I think
you can see the fight.
Yeah, there's something to say with that as well. To say like, okay, if your steps aren't super visible and super like, I am pushing this, I am doing everything in my power to do this. If it feels more like I'm trying to get them to work with me, then I think he can lose some credibility with that, right? Like, he has to heal. He has a hard job right now. I'm not gonna lie. Like, part of it is easy because you're like coming after a president that just wasn't a great president, so you get this certain amount of boost of being a better president.
Right.
Other than that, like, his job is hard. Like, he does have to heal the country, but at the same time push certain initiatives or certain things that he said he was going to do. Like, he has to push it, and that's not going to make everybody happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is what it is.
Yeah, I got a couple things on that, because I actually don't think it's as hard as we think it'll be, right? And, you know, full disclosure, everybody knows I'm a Bernie bro, right? You want to say it for whether it's negative or positive, for me it's positive, right? For all the flack that he took, he was effective at going into places like West Virginia and boldly saying, I want to give you all Medicare. I want to give you all healthcare, right? And people generally liked and appreciated that. people who wear red MAGA hats appreciated that, right? Why? Because in West Virginia, if you look at the amount of socialism being poured into West Virginia and what they're requesting of it, more of it, because they're in such dire straits there, it means that maybe it's not as hard as we think. If he moves away, like you said, from this ideal that healing means I have to give up these progressive ideals, because if he subscribes to Jim Clyburn's assertion and Joe Manchin's assertion that this was a repudiation of progressivism and moderate and left politics, then he's going to fail, because he's going to be a vanilla president. And the one reason why we're here still counting votes, and those votes are so close, is because people generally don't like vanilla, right? When it comes to your leaders, you want bold, right? Whether or not Barack was a moderate and centrist, which he was, there was something about his style that was bold, right? Wasn't Trump. It was inspiring. But it was still the same force. It's the same commanding presence, this commanding sense of ownership of the issues. Even though Trump was a bulldog and an idiot, you know what I mean, who bulldozed his way, for him it worked, right? Because again, like you said, his people saw the fight and they took to that, right? What we saw in Barack was the finesse, but the finesse was something that we enjoyed watching, but it didn't viscerally call or rally us to get behind him, right? You know what I'm saying? Why? Why? Because the policies, in a sense, were kind of vanilla, right? Like universal health care, we got behind that. That's why that got passed. He uses political capital. It was the first 2 years, right? He was pushing, right? But after that, once you start having a tap dance with Mitch McConnell and stuff like that, it's hard to rally people with finesse behind ideas that they generally don't understand, because you've nuanced them and vanilla them down to a point where you hope that somebody like Mitch McConnell is going to negotiate. And then he's like, nah, thank you for coming to the table by giving up half of what you want. Now give me half. I want half of what you got left. You know what I'm saying? So I think he needs to come in bold. He needs to like heal the country, but come in and say, my ideals will work for you, because you sat here for 4 years saying we're not racist. We just feel forgotten. And I believe genuinely there are some people who are okay with racism, and we can argue whether or not that makes them, you know, of course we'll say that makes them racist, but there are people who are more like, look, I don't got a job. I don't got health care, and ain't nobody really coming here, right? Nobody's speaking to me. Nobody's talking about this. You guys are talking about ending this energy thing and this, you know. So he needs to come in there and say, no, this is why my policies are going to put you back to work. Going to make sure you have health care. It's going to protect your family, going to protect your water. You know what I mean? Make sure if you're on food assistance, you're going to be able to keep your food assistance and stuff like that. So even if Donald Trump is tweeting the whole time while this is going on, it's going to be, to me, less effective if his message is bold. But I will say the one thing that Donald Trump can do, which will destabilize Biden for the next 2 years, and this is what I'm worried about. Like, to me, Trump, I describe him as that dude, when you play Monopoly, who flip over the table because they about to land on Baltic Avenue, and you put like 15 hotels on it, and they know it, and they just flip the table over, like they don't even want to go through counting the money and mortgaging. That's who that dude is.
Yeah.
My fear is that he will declassify some documents going back as far as Bill Clinton. And do we ever really want to know all the sausage making that happened, you know what I'm saying, under Clinton, under, you know, Barack and stuff like that? Like, if he declassifies some things that really has people like, yo, what? I think that's the one thing that would really affect the first year of a presidency. If you got an answer for stuff, and it would be a little different because Joe is also a part of that administration. Like if this was just like, you know, if Kamala, for example, was the president, you know what I mean, and with some other dude, it wouldn't matter as much because he was like, yeah, I wasn't there when these dudes did that, you know what I mean? But if he declassifies things, especially from Barack's era, it's going to bring Hillary Clinton back into the fold. It's going to bring Joe Biden intimately into the fold. It's going to bring Barack into question, and they would have to answer for things that no president generally has to answer for, because presidents usually know, like, come on, there's a code, right? You don't want to like turn things over. And if there is stuff to be turned over, honestly, the media and the press has a responsibility to investigate, right? You can't be like, well, there's some shady shit that comes out, then you gotta go ahead and do your due diligence, because that's only right? You should know,
right?
If it's declassified. So
yeah, people, someone was talking to me yesterday, and they were like, "Oh, Donald's going under the jail and all this," and I was like, I don't think, I really don't see him going to jail. Like, I think he has like access to too much information. One, I don't think that would be a good move on a lot of fronts. I think somebody will finally get to him and be like, you can make more money and do more things right now not being the president than actually being the president. And I think he will quiet down after a while. I think right now he feels like he has to kind of do this. He doesn't like to lose. Like, I think this is more about his ego than actually thinking about like what winning means to him. You know what I mean? Like, I was a big person who was like, I don't know if he wants to be president still. You know what I mean? I think he enjoys the power of it, but I don't know about the stress levels of it. And I think the way he handles it, sometimes you see that. But yeah, I think he will go away. I don't know how long that's going to take, or what, a lot of people are scared about what he'll do in his next, 72, 73 days. If he'll do something that's just like, kind of like what you just said, Law, like, that would be kind of crazy for him to make that move, but couldn't put it past him to do it.
Definitely.
I also want to bring back a point. You talked about Joe being bold, and that was a good point. And like, I'm thinking about it in the sense of, do I think Joe I think he's been bold before. If you look up some footage of him and some things he's argued, I think he's been bold in moments. I'm just like, in this moment, I'm thinking like, is that what's going to happen, or other people that he brings along with him going to be the bold for him? You know what I mean? Like, you brought up vanilla, and I look at him as vanilla bean, where it's not like regular vanilla, but it's a little bit, it's a little bit stronger of a vanilla, but it's not really bold. But I feel like Bernie is the hot fudge or something on top, and then Elizabeth Warren coming in, and I think he's gonna try to pull people in to be the toppings, and he'll be the foundation of it, and like he'll push things. But I feel like, and he may be the one saying these things, right? He may be the one who delivers the message. But I feel like the boldness is going to come from other places, because I don't know, I think people view him right now as the person to, again, be the mender, be the, I'm going to heal, I'm going to bring it together. And that part of it is important right now, right? Because, Donnie, you said earlier, like, America spoke, right? For us, that's how it feels. But I'm telling you, there's someone somewhere today who feels like America didn't speak. Right. I feel the election was stolen, right? So how do we get back to a point where it's like, I think his words about not being enemies is real. Or not, you know what I mean? Like, we don't agree on certain things, but we're not enemies. Like, I don't hate you. And that's what we've gotten to. And like, when I looked back at, I was telling you about a law, you posted it, Senator McCain, when he conceded in his speech, right? And I think his actions definitely proved his words. I think in that moment, people might have been like, I don't know if I really rock with what you're saying. But I think his actions started to prove he was being somewhat like real about what he was saying to an extent, and believed in patriotism and believed in what that should look like. And we've gotten away from that. Like, we've gotten totally away from that, to where if you believe in a different political like view than mine, now we're enemies. Now I don't like you anymore. Now, hate crimes are happening over politics. You know what I mean? That wasn't a good move, Law. And now he's gone. He might come back one day. But no, I really think like the fact that we've gotten to the point where you can literally lose friends over politics. And it's deep rooted. Like, some of the things that came out in the politics, I get it. Like, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm your friend still when you're saying this is okay.
Right.
Right? But I'm just in my head like, can he get it back to a point where it's like, hey, we have a debate. I don't agree. Cool. We done with the debate. What's good? What you doing tonight? And that be okay. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to mend those fences, but still be as bold as he needs to be. So that's gonna, or be at least allow the bold ideals or things to come in as much as he needs to, because that's why I'm saying his job is hard, because there's like this, he has to do a great blend of both. Like, he has to be vanilla bean but also be bold. You know what I mean? So I think he really does have a tough job ahead of him, and I'm gonna be interested to see how he takes it on. I'm also interested to see how much Kamala, like what role, how much of a role, how big of a piece. I mean, you know, other than what her duties are, like how big of an influence will she be?
Yeah, and that's interesting. Yeah, because I think about, okay, what's the most effective strategy at this point for Joe Biden, right? To mend the fences and prepare people for his agenda, and to employ Kamala as a vice president, knowing, you know, the challenges that are going to come from the other side, because that's where the mending has to start, right? It's not so much from us. Yeah, you got a few fools who's like, oh yeah, you know, but she like black men. Yeah, she got some things you definitely kind of like we need to come to, but overall, we're good over here, right? We love what we got, right? For the most part,
right?
We're good with it. We're satisfied with it. I think for him, again, right now there are 70 million people on the right who largely don't have a problem with Biden, right? Because that's, you know, after all, he's a white dude, right? He, regardless of what Trump says, most white people know that Joe Biden is kind of like most white folks, right? Most white folks aren't like filthy rich. Most of them are just like, if he didn't happen to be a senator, and he was never like this wealthy senator, right? He's not like McConnell, like came in, you know, worth like 50,000, now he's worth like, dang, on 25 million, 60 million, right? Mm-hmm. I think they identify with him, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's important for him to go right into those areas of those deplorables and do town halls. I mean, now the thing is, of course, we'll say, oh, well, it's COVID. That changes things. But absent of COVID, being able to get into the rooms with those real folk who have their heads filled with Fox News and challenge their ideals, you know what I mean? And and their assumptions about government, about policy, about what, you know, what socialism, educate them. A lot of them aren't educated. You know what I mean? They think, oh, we're not a socialist country. Yeah, you got Social Security, you got Medicaid, you got Medicare. You know what I mean? What else you got? You got government funding, some community colleges. There's all sorts of levels where we're a socialist country, where you wouldn't want to give that up, right? But being able to go into those areas and effectively, I guess, sanitize the message that they've been hearing from this one source, you know, on repeat, and having those tough conversations. And I think that's how you do it. I mean, you make it public. You know what I mean? Again, that was something that Bernie was really good at doing. He was criticized for it at first, right? He was criticized for going on Fox News, right? Everybody's like, look at him. What's he doing going on Fox News? But I listen to right-wing media. And you know what the criticism of Bernie was? Bernie's crazy, but I think he means well. Mm-hmm. His policies, his socialist policies are going to destroy us, but I think he means well. Mm-hmm. You know, call Bernie what you want. Yeah, he's crazy, but at least he's a good dude. Like, that's what you want them to feel about you. Because if they think you're a good dude, they'll give you the benefit of the doubt. The reason we didn't give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt to give him a chance because we knew he was a douchebag. You know what I mean? So being able to go into those areas, don't wait until after inauguration. Go now. Start your tour now. Be like, let's talk, because you guys have been fed some BS for 4 years. And I want to tell you how these ideals that I'm going to need you to help me get support for, I'm going to need you to call your senator. I'm going to need you to call, I'm going to go to Kentucky. I'm going to need you to tell Mitch McConnell, look, in Kentucky, this is how many of you are unemployed right now. This is how many of you don't have health care right now. This is your school ranking on the federal level, on the level of all states. You rank number blah. This is our plan for that.
Yeah.
And then let them challenge you. You know what I mean? I got some favorite moments from Barack. And I'm a nerd when it comes to this sometimes, right? If you get a chance, if you could pull up the video of Barack, I think it was his first year in office, when he went to the Republican, the GOP retreat, and it was just him in a room full of all the Republican congressmen. And they was firing. He was, they thought, yeah, we're going to trap him. In fact, Mike Pence, punk ass Mike Pence, he came up there. He was like, Mr. President, we hope that you're here in good faith, and we believe that your policies will destroy America, blah, 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 blah. And he just kind of like laughed. And Paul Ryan, who everybody thought was this whiz kid, right? You know what I mean? They thought they had him. And they started firing questions. And he was like, yeah, I actually read your bill. And when I read your bill, you heard this and that. And he started reading them. And it was beautiful. In fact, it was so effective that the Republican Party agreed we should never televise any discussions with Barack one-on-one with us again. It was him in the lion's den. But that's what you do.
Yep.
If you can go into the lion's den and withstand the fire, if you go into the furnace and withstand the fire, then people be like, damn, this nigga's gold. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude is the real genuine article. And they can trust you. But if we go back into our bubbles, if we retreat to the Huffington Post, MSNBC, CNN bubbles, and we govern from that posture, especially without the support of the far left, right? Then you're going to be vanilla and you're not going to be effective. And you're going to put Kamala in a very bad situation in 4 years.
I think the good thing is that is typically, I don't know about him going to the Republican.
Well, he shouldn't do it. Joe shouldn't do it.
I don't think he can do. Oh, no, he don't. I don't think he can do that. But I definitely think he can do the town halls. Like, I think that's his strong suit, connecting with people, like really, building those bridges, having those real conversations. That's actually, to me, where he shines more than anything else. Like, he's not the best speaker in the world. He's been doing better. Definitely been working on it. But I think when he gets to have a real conversation with people, that's where he tends to shine. Or like at least get people to say, like you said, okay, he's a good dude. Okay, I see where he's coming from. That's again, they still may not 100% agree.
Right.
But I think they give him that benefit of the doubt that you're talking about. So
yeah,
I think that is definitely a move for him to make, something that he should go after. I'm very interested to see, like, how does his moves change if they do win the Senate, or if like Kamala's the deciding factor? How different does that look? You know what I mean? Like, some of this conversation I think we're having is with the assumption that they won't win the Senate. That's what I feel like we're talking as. Compared to if they do, does that look completely different?
I say do it anyway.
I agree.
Because it's about healing the country, right? So if I got the power, to a degree, I really don't need your senators. I don't need your support, but I still go and get it. And I genuinely value you, right? That you know what I mean? But if it's like, hey, well, I don't really need you, let me like kind of, then when I do need you, you're like, yo, where were you before? You know what I mean? You said you were going to be the president for all of us. So again, even if I'm going to run right over your policies, over your Republican policies, I want to come and tell you, look, I'm going to run over your policies, but here's why. And this is what I think is effective. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I mean, it's really about establishing relationship. You know what I mean? And I feel like we can do that. I feel like, you know who I say who I would love to see in government? Killer Mike. I'm dead ass. I feel like Killer Mike would pull red MAGA hat wearing Republicans like that. Why? Because Killer Mike comes, he talks real stuff. There's certain areas where he definitely is conservative, libertarian. You know what I mean? He's definitely progressive. He's smart. He speaks boldly, but he will speak. He will build the relationship with somebody he does not agree with. You know what I mean? And it have real talk. But I think the only way if racism exists, not if, we know it does. And since it exists to the degree that it does, we got to go back to history. We got to put out kind of our history hats on. You can't eradicate it from behind a defensive wall. You have to open yourself up to confront it somehow. And either you gonna get in a room and fight it out, or you gonna go Dr. King style. Either you're gonna be Malcolm X or King. There's only two ways that you move that ball. Either you have them respect your authority and your kingliness as Malcolm did, and you're gonna it's gonna come with some heat, no doubt, or you appeal or you believe enough in the humanity of an individual to say, I will subject myself, you know what I'm saying, to being in your presence and having that argument and being ridiculed or whatever, you know what I mean, to establish that relationship. I feel like somebody like Killer Mike would blend both of those. You know what I mean? I feel like he can play from both ends. You can't punk him, but he also is enough to kind of, you know, that's the sort of person I'm looking for. I know we don't have it, but as we start thinking about future leaders and leadership,
but I think it stands to go. It goes to the point of what do you want your government to look like, and at the end of the day, that's what it's going to boil down to. A lot of people I think would shudder at the fact of bringing somebody like Killer Mike into it because they don't want that kind of real out there. You know what I mean? It's just like you can't tame that. And when it comes to the popular votes and trying to get people to play along, I think it'll be entirely disruptive. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm saying that if that was the case, then I mean, shit, we could throw T.I. in there. We can.
No, we can't.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about in the case of wits or whatever. I'm not saying the T.I. is smarter or not smarter than Killer Mike. I'm saying from a perspective of the image, and I think that the image alone would be like, oh, okay, cool. Well, that's Killer Mike. I mean, what does he know? And then they'd be like, oh, okay, because he's a street guy, and then so forth and so on. And then comes the you know what I mean? His campaign of trying to be put into that conversation would get blasted out the water. Somebody would try to sink his battleship just off the fact that he was a rapper alone.
Which I think is great because one thing that the last 4 years has shown us is one, people are tired of the ideal that only certain people are qualified to speak to their issues and people who are out of touch with their issues, right? Again, going back to Q, I had a lot of problems with that discussion. And one of the main problems I had was people who were like, oh, look at him. Who is Q? Who is he to come to this thing? He's a rapper. Shut up and rap. Number one, I'm like, oh, so are we saying we not down? We not wearing number 7 no more? We not taking knees no more? Oh, so it's not about just, being an entertainer, right? So let's get rid of that because we value entertainers who say what we want them to say, right? Who believe, right? But then the other thing is, well, he hasn't been doing the work. And then I'm like, I hear you, but a lot of people are doing the work. But if the people don't see the work or the results, then you don't have the people's support to do the work. And in the people's mind, the work is not being done. Exactly. So who are like people to be like, well, who is Killer Mike? If he can speak to the issue, if Q can speak to the issue effectively and get people to galvanize, because that's the thing, people doing the work. The problem is people get so comfortable with doing the work in the official capacity in the 2008 to 2015 way of doing things,
Right.
and they feel effective, and they are effective if you evaluate it in terms of that old way of doing politics, right? I lobby, I build relationships and stuff, which is hugely important, not undervaluing, right? But if at the end of the day, you're doing the work, but you're doing the work with a party that does not have the power to bring the results, then the work isn't effectively or essentially being done, right? It's being engaged, but it's not being done, right? If there's something preventing you from, if your job is to build from A to Z, and that's the goal, your job is to build from A to Z, but there's somebody stopping you at D, you can't be like, well, I'm sitting here just doing the work and you should come to me first. No,
Right.
If somebody else who is an American, who has a voice, who has a platform, believes in an issue, and hopefully they have the intelligence and the desire to see it improve, then we need to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think we need to trust that more people in America aren't in college and college educated. They don't think like us. So we see somebody like Cube, and it's a lot of college educated people like, oh, scoffing. Oh my goodness, it's Cube. How dare you?
Right.
About, what I'm saying? And other people like who didn't go to college, like, yo, that's real talk. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And Killer Mike is somebody who's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
He can hit you. So I'm not necessarily, advocating for his campaign or him to run for office, but I believe what he represents of that type of person who's intelligent enough to speak to issues, who's informed on the issues, who speaks boldly on the issues, who's brave enough to not be bullied by either side. Like people were like, yo, how's Killer Mike up here, stunting for the NRA? Well, because a lot of Black people own guns.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people who needed guns. This whole idea that Joe Biden was like, hey, Black people aren't like Latinos, who are diverse. And I'm like, and Black people are like, yo, you know what he means, because Latinos have diverse perspectives. There are a lot of Black people who don't believe in abortion, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of Black people who will cut their wrist when they make that vote, because they know I really don't believe in it. There's a lot of Black people who believe in guns. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Black people who don't believe in government assistance, right? These ideas that we think monolithically about these things, man. I don't know. We need somebody who can speak more dynamically and more authentically and not be bullied either way. And I feel like that's the problem. We allow, again, I'm going to go back to my dude, right? I'm a bro. But there's some things that I love to debate people.
Yeah.
One of the things I celebrate about Sanders is that he did not capitulate on things that he fundamentally believed, right? Mm-hmm. He wasn't going to placate to you to get your votes. So if you ask him, wait, do you want to rescind what you said about Cuba and the literacy rate? He's like, no, because what it is a fact.
Right.
There were things that were improved. The healthcare was improved. The literacy rates were improved. Those things help people, right? As Black people who are forbidden from reading, we should be able to appreciate the power of reading to help folks get an education, right? So I feel like the way, again, business as usual with Democrats is stick my finger in the air. Oh, the wind's blowing this way. You know what? Yeah, we don't believe in. Oh, the finger's going this way. Oh, yeah, now well, we're not totally going to, defund police. Say what you believe. If you do not believe in defunding the police, say, I do not believe in defunding the police. Because you know what? There's a lot of Black people in their neighborhoods who are like, do not defund the police, right? Because they're like, yo, who am I calling? You talking about put more social workers out here? There's a woman who got killed in Harlem because she asked some young brothers to stop lighting fireworks. Mm-hmm. Supposed to be, you want me to stop to defund the police? Because I need you guys to come and address this, because if I go down there, because they're being reckless with those fireworks and they're shooting it into the windows, then I may get killed. Wait, so again, we need people who can speak boldly, who can speak to the collegiate level person, or to the person who didn't graduate from high school authentically and not be bullied into a position.
I think something that like, I mean, I agree with that position. Definitely like where you come, what you started as doesn't necessarily need to dictate what you can go to. I mean, I think Donald Trump proved that. I mean, Ronald Reagan was an actor. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like realistically, I mean, I just think it shouldn't dictate. I get kind of Donnie's point in that it would be a thing people would try to use against him.
Right.
But I think he's smart enough to like, you know, kind of navigate those obstacles. But I do think he would be able to speak to people at a certain level or like at a certain understanding where he could get through it. And that's important now. I think the only like when you brought up Ice Cube, you know, I had this like weird back and forth with the whole Ice Cube thing. I think what he was attempting to do was definitely a positive move. I didn't disagree with him being the person to do it. The one thing I disagreed or like kind of had an issue with was you talked about like doing the ABCs if you get stuck on D, is the work being done? I don't feel like he necessarily got the work done either. I think he presented a plan. I think he worked on A to D and got stuck too, but he was just saying it louder. Like he had cameras filming him working on A through D while these people didn't per se. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like it made it a battle. And he did and he didn't. It's like sometimes he would engage in that and make it seem like when nobody else is doing it, which wasn't the right statement. Right?
Absolutely.
When people like Roland Martin put him in front of people, he would say, well, I'm willing to work with anybody. I said that, which is true, right? I think you can't deny or glass over that you said no one is doing the work. I think that was the offensive part to people, and that's what got him under fire. It was like, acknowledge that people have done it. Have they accomplished something like that needs to be done? No. And I think that if that was his messaging, hey, I know people are out here working, and I know people have put years into this, but the mission hasn't been accomplished. So I'm just another person out here who wants to see the mission accomplished. If you want to work with me, right? I think if he would have took that path, he wouldn't have got some of the flack that he got, right? Like in just changing up the messaging. And like that tends to be, especially with Black folk, our issue is that, again, I brought up on a couple of episodes back, we were talking about Candace Owens. And Cardi B, right? So Cardi B is definitely not going to be anybody's person you go to. I mean, but then again, some people do for like political advice, right? To where Candace Owens is definitely knowledgeable. You can't take that away from her. She knows stuff. But what ended up happening was these two Black women were tearing each other down on social media. So then it doesn't become like nobody's learning, nobody's growing from it. Now it's just two Black women who are tearing each other down, which, you know, propels what the stereotype is, right? So it's like, damn, we got to a place where there could have been growth from this, but there wasn't. There was just, now y'all not even talking politics no more. Y'all just talking about who doesn't deserve to say something, right? Like, he's like, oh, you're a rapper, you shouldn't say something. Cardi's like, oh, well, you a sellout, you don't deserve to say something. Instead of talking, like they should have had a sit down. I get it. In politics, that may not mean a lot, but this goes back to the Killer Mike thing. Like, yes, Cardi B can make raunchy songs, and you know, again, you may not want her to represent or talk to your kids about politics, but she has the ear of a lot of young adults, young kids. Like, she has their ear. It is what it is, right? So put her in a room with Candace Owens, and they can have a civil conversation about their differences, about their thoughts and opinions. They learn from each other. Now, what does that do? What does that grow? And that's where I think Killer Mike could be effective, because I think he would go into a room. He wouldn't just go after. It's just like when Diddy did the Revolt Summit.
Exactly what I was about to bring up.
And T.I. and Candace were going back and forth. And Killer Mike was like, hold on. Both of y'all wrong. Both of y'all need to stop. And I said both, B-O-F. Right? Both of y'all just stop and hear what I gotta say, because y'all are fighting each other, and that's not helping anything. And I think that would be like how he could be beneficial. Yeah.
And I think both of these, I think the topic overall is one that can go a lot of different ways. I agree with both of your points. I think any anybody who really kind of pays attention to the landscape and the climate of everything that's going on can definitely agree with your points. I think at this point in time, we have to get to a point as to where we got to push pause on it, and we can revisit this at another time for sure. Definitely respect both of you guys' points. Love it. And I think that hopefully in the next episode, we can continue with possibly bring somebody else on from another perspective and so forth and so on. But nonetheless, just want to say at the end of the day, this is Two Flew West with great topics. Got my brother Nicholas Baker and my other brother Law Watford. And
hey, right before we log off, I know we're about to log off. Law, tell them what you got going on. Tell them what you got coming.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it. So I'm a filmmaker, and I have a short film called Catharsis. So we'll be having our like kind of preview screening in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, on December 5th, which should be cool. And you know, it's I guess if I had to describe it, I mean, it's social justice cinema, but it's kind of like a thriller, for lack of a better word, that kind of directly relates to you know, the what we find ourselves dealing with, attorney generals and the failure to hold police accountable for the murders of Black people, both men and women. And so looking forward to getting that done. And then it's kind of a proof of concept for a television pilot that I completed, you know, trying to get out there. So awesome. Yeah, appreciate y'all, brothers.
So we should continue this conversation.
For sure. So let's do it soon. Okay. Again, in the interim, Donnie B got the beats, brother Nicholas Baker, brother Law Watford.
And this is dope. Y'all got the best podcast out. Yo, y'all gonna be on the Young Turks. The Young Turks gonna try and pick y'all up. I bet you. The Young Turks gonna come to y'all.
Hey, shout it out.
Yep.
Cool.
Appreciate you guys. And we about to be out.